And thanks for joining us. You are listening to Truth for Our Time. I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for sitting in with us as we help you live God's Word in today's world. And today I'm thrilled. I want to go right to the phone lines. We are talking with Josh Klein. Josh is out of the Breitbart Jerusalem Post, and we're going to be talking about Bannon, Steve Bannon from Breitbart. The new post given to him is White House or Chief Strategist at the White House under the new Trump administration. Josh, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm honored to have you, and we have several folks from Breitbart who are kind enough to be guests on this radio show. Leo Holman, Lee Stranahan, we follow him and the work that he's been doing talking about refugees and the harm to both refugees and Americans when we try to bring two cultures together that don't mix. But I want to hop today to Stephen Bannon from Breitbart. He's been very instrumental in the success and victory of the Trump campaign, and now he's been given a post as the chief strategist. The media's in an uproar. Why, Josh?
Well, I think the beginning of your sentence kind of gives it away, that he has been very successful and involved in Trump's success. So the left is obviously diametrically opposed to not seeing Trump succeed, and they want to gun for Steve Bannon first. I mean, he's just first on the list. This is a well-orchestrated attack. I mean, it's going on even today. They nominated Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General. You know, the headlines in a lot of places are at least pro-KKK, so it's just repeating itself. But specifically with Steve Bannon, yeah, I mean, he was definitely very heavily involved in strategy and pulling off what they figured was impossible, and they just don't want somebody surrounding Trump and seeing his administration succeed, so they just want to take him out, is what it looks like on my side.
And I think I'm seeing, too, I don't know if you're seeing it over there, but all of a sudden we're blaming the loss of the election on fake news sites and fake news. And I think they're even suggesting possibly that Breitbart might be one of those non-real websites.
Yeah, I saw that we are on the list. Yeah, I mean, this kind of harkens back to, I don't know if you remember when Obama, he had these czars in office. Cass Sunstein was one of them, but he was the information czar, and he had very similar ideas of wanting to regulate the Internet and getting rid of sites that he considered conspiracy websites. Of course, they're the ones that are going to be the arbiters of that and decide what is considered true information and what is not. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of very alarming. It's pretty serious that that's going on. I would hope that under, obviously, President-elect and soon-to-be Trump, that he would be way against this and open to free press and not labeling legitimate news organizations fake news. So, yeah, I find that pretty outrageous.
And even Obama in Europe yesterday was talking about the fake news sites and the impact that it had on the campaign, and suggesting that that folks were listening more to fake news than real news. I would tell you, folks are tired of getting fake news from the mainstream media or having truth omitted or a parcel of it spun falsely, and they're going to non-traditional, or what these folks are calling fake news sites, to get the truth.
Yeah, I mean, you have even the New York Times themselves. I mean, the #1 leading paper supposedly in the world coming out and admitting that they didn't cover this fairly and that they need to have a little bit of introspection and kind of rethink the way that they present the news. So that's coming from the New York Times itself. It didn't seem to last too long. A day or two later, of course, their front page is gunning for Steve Bannon with these baseless accusations of calling him a racist, a white supremacist. Breitbart, I mean, to go after the site Breitbart that has a bureau in Jerusalem and saying that the site's a breeding ground for white supremacists. I don't know of too many Nazi or supremacist websites that have Jerusalem bureaus. So, right. I mean, it's just beyond ridiculous. It's just,
and,
I can't even put it into words.
Well, and it's something we need to keep an eye on, because I don't know if our listeners are aware of the ICANN. When we changed the internet, away from America's control into now a European control with the ICANN, ICANN, and we'll talk about that more in another segment. But let's get back to Bannon. So we are being told he's anti-Semitic, he's racist, he's a white supremacist, and yet I'm reading a couple of different things. I've got on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page an article about Steve Bannon that talks about a speech he gave that was, I think, piped into the Vatican. I think he was in California when he gave it. And this man is a learned man. First off, let's just quickly run down. He's Goldman Sachs, but he's not enmeshed and embedded in Goldman Sachs. I would say he's one who possibly walked away from it and was in it and now can understand it for the rest of us to fight the things we don't like about what we hear about Goldman Sachs. Would that be true?
Yeah, that would be really true, and that's really interesting. I actually spent yesterday I think the speech was about 49 minutes, and I actually wanted to listen to the whole thing myself, and I was quite blown away by it. Unbelievable information, strongly pushing Judeo-Christian values. He exactly brings up his experience from the inside in Goldman Sachs and how disgusted he became at the way that, banks have become in the way that they just don't even see people as human beings anymore and just commodities, and just the way that kind of capitalism has transformed into a more crony form of capitalism. He's a very learned man. A lot of people don't know that about him. Yeah, he's got a career going back even to he was a naval officer for 10 years, Harvard graduate, as you mentioned, very successful in Hollywood. And obviously started Breitbart, a huge site, and wanted a Jerusalem Bureau for many years, and was the one that came out to Israel and was very instrumental. And it was his idea to set this up. This was a dream of his since I've been going back to 2012 when he came in. So to call him an anti-Semite, to call the site anti-Semitic, is just nonsense. I mean, even the ADL they put out, which I find outrageous. It really coarsens and cheapens the language when you start throwing out the term anti-Semite. Now they actually retracted on that after looking into it for about 10 minutes. But that just that really demonstrates the kind of campaign and the kind of machine that we're going up against. And
right.
He's not even in office yet.
Right. And all the more reason we need to have somebody like a Bannon who has, one, dealt with the media. He knows what he's up against, and he knows how to combat them. I really think he was a great part of the success on the social media and his ability to get news out. The terms that they're throwing at him, you're right, are just unconscionable. And if we were doing it, if it were reversed, we would be waylaid in the media for even attempting to say something like that about someone. So tell us, what do you think, as a strategist, what does he offer the Trump administration?
Yes, years of experience. I mean, obviously, just even getting Trump elected, he came in towards the end, at around August, when people thought he had no chance, and they turned things around. I mean, from what I understand from the outside, he's a workhorse. I've never seen anyone multitask like him. I just think that there's a reason why they don't just gun for people unless there is a reason, and the fact that he was so instrumental and successful in pushing and completing the biggest upset, and I guess from their side and modern history, that they want to go straight after him, because I think that he'll be very instrumental, and hopefully the success that we'll see from the Trump administration. And they definitely are not. That's not within their interest. There was even a story in Politico. I don't know if you saw that a few days ago. This is out in the open, where George Soros and they all met in New York for 3 days, and they were straight up talking about their plans of how to delegitimize Obama from day one, how to destroy his agenda, how to take him down. This is not, as you would call a conspiracy. This is just from their own mouths.
And how to delegitimize Trump. Yes. So I think, too, economically, he went to Harvard. He has a Harvard business degree. I think economically he'll be able to offer strategies as well there, strategies on foreign policy. Breitbart is the one news source that is faithful in reporting terrorism in America, the ISIS impact, the Islamic impact, the refugee impact on states when other websites show little about it. And I know you being in the Middle East, you have a perspective that we don't even get here. So Steve Bannon has this ability. He stepped in, for everyone who's not sure, didn't know, Steve Bannon stepped in when Andrew Breitbart was taken from us and passed away. And so he has led your organization for how long now?
Since 2012, so for coming up to close to 5 years now. And yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, you don't see it. It's also interesting. I mean, if he was this rabid anti-Semite that they painted him as, I think you would see a lot more uniformity in the organizations coming out and condemning him. It's interesting that really it was just the ADL that retracted it. And I mean, I would, if they didn't, then I would be surprised. It's really coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center. But all the other mainstream Jewish organizations either complimented him or haven't said anything, and I think it is that idea. If anything, I was racking my head around it, and I think it is the fact that he is pro-Israel that really drives these people crazy. It's the same group that's calling him all these names are the same group that is against Israel, thinks Israel is an apartheid racist state. So it kind of actually makes sense that in a crazy way that the fact that he is pro-Israel, that they're attacking him and painting him as an anti-Semite, because that's what they do also with the state of Israel. It's the same people, the same group, and the same tactics. So if you kind of look at it through that perspective, that it kind of just makes sense in that way to me, looking at the people that are behind this, the same people.
If there's anything the Trump candidacy has done, it has exposed those who are not with us in the media, and it has exposed how far left the media is and what levels they'll stoop to lie, to cover up, to refuse to report on a Hillary Clinton and her issues of pay for play, her issues of Russia reset, her issues of money being taken in, the emails that she likes to draw attention to as the FBI being the issue. The FBI wouldn't have an issue if the emails hadn't first been written and used on a private, illegal, unconstitutional server. But the media covered so little of that. Trump has exposed that. He has exposed the Republicans and Democrats who are not in this for the best of our country, but maybe for themselves or for their own invitation to the White House, more concerned about that than who's in the White House. And so he's exposed so many of the weaknesses, the pundits, the political consultants, all those folks who have really dirtied the process here in America. And I think Bannon just continues on with what Trump has exposed, and he said he would be different. We wanted a shakeup, and he's shaking it up. Bannon doesn't come from the inside. He doesn't come from the media pool that reported at the White House. He doesn't come from, maybe he did it one time, I guess, I don't know, but he doesn't come from that inner group where they all seem to have this pact with each other, not to spill the beans, to keep things happy in their own little camp. Well, we Americans wanted something different.
Exactly. I mean, he's not a swamp creature, as there seems to be the main problem, is that he is not from that swamp, and they understand that, and they're threatened by it, and they see a different kind of person coming, and with that correct understanding and years and years of doing this, and I think that out of all the people, they're most afraid of him, and I mean, this is about their bottom line in the end of the day, their power, their money, their connections, just the way that the order has been in Washington for the past, 20, 30 years at least, and just how corrupted things have become. So, I mean, it makes sense that these people would be reacting this way. I mean, he's threatening to clean this up. If there wasn't all this corruption and all these things that are going on that they claim Trump is, just over-exaggerating, then I don't really know what they're so fearful of.
30 seconds left. Israel is pleased with the Trump victory?
Yeah. I mean, after Obama, they are definitely pleased with, and I mean, nothing could have gotten worse for the country of Israel after Obama. So they kind of are definitely in a good place as far as U.S.-Israel relation ties, and they're definitely looking forward to working with the Trump administration. I know that Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, is one of the first people that Trump is looking forward to meeting with once he gets into office.
We've got to go to break. Josh Klein, thank you for chopping in. I hope you'll stop in again. Folks, stay tuned. We've got more coming. Suck it up, Buttercup Bill, for all those protesters. Stay tuned right after this.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
So suck it up, buttercup. Move on, get over it. This ain't no school of hard knocks. Pull up your socks, you're having a fit.
Suck it up, Buttercup. We love the name of that song. We are now thrilled to have it as the name of a proposed bill by Representative Bobby Kaufman. We'll be talking to him next segment about the bill he's offering to take away funding from those schools that are frankly just misusing it. So we'll be glad to have him joining us. But first in studio is State Senator Jake Chapman. Thank you for coming in, Jake.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Now, before we start, Chris, can we find that Fox and Friends link? A little bit of news here from our friends at Fox and Friend. More of our Suck It Up Buttercup playing. We're talking, Jake, we're going to talk with you about the protesters and the fact that, one, I don't know really how many are out there. I think if we added it up, I've heard it's like less than 1% of the voting public.
Sure.
But the fact that they're causing damage to property, they're stopping people from commuting on the highways and the interstates, and so we're going to talk about that with your bill. Chris, we're going to go ahead and, do you have it?
112 people were arrested.
70% of them weren't even registered or did not vote. That was in Portland.
That's exactly right. So
that's where the worst rioting was.
So the worst rioting in Portland, descending from out of town, again, so it's not just locals that are frustrated about Donald Trump. An organized effort in Portland, Oregon, 112 arrests, 70% of them haven't voted.
Hold it right there. Put it right there on a pause because we'll come back to it. 70% of those protesting are either not registered to vote or didn't vote.
Isn't that incredible? They didn't use their ability to go influence the election, but yet they want to go out there and protest. And I'm not quite certain they even know what they're protesting at this point. You know,
we've heard that Craigslist, some of them are answering ads, some of them are getting paid. We always assume that Soros is behind this somewhere.
You bet.
But the irritation, we have had men and women die to preserve the privilege that we have in America to speak out on those who govern for us. And these people refuse to be part of the process, and now they're causing problems, damage, millions of dollars worth of damage to not the government or whoever they're mad at, but mom and pop businesses who are trying to make it.
Yeah, it's obstructionists. It's not just obstructionists. It is people that it's really reprehensible what they're doing. And I'm looking forward to proposing some legislation to address some of that. And I want folks to know we had an incident here occur over in Iowa City not too long ago where protesters went out on Interstate 80 and blocked traffic. This is extremely dangerous.
Do they vote? Who's the first guy out? You know, do you draw the short straw that you're the first one out on the interstate?
Well, funny you should say that. I mean, we saw in Oakland, California, the first one that did go out on the street ended up getting hit by a car. And fortunately, that driver swerved to the left instead of to the right and could have just taken out tons of people. And fortunately for that driver, she or he didn't hit the median. And so, I mean, this is just, it's absurd what's going on, and it needs to be addressed.
It's so aggravating to me because it's so unnecessary. But here's what you need to understand, listeners. They're not anti-Trump. This is not just anti-Trump. They are anti-process. We have a process in place. We are blessed in this country. We have had our say here in Iowa from the get-go. And no matter what state you live in, you had the opportunity to vote, and your electors will represent your votes here coming up in December. And it is a carefully, and we have the Electoral College, which we'll be talking about next week, to protect us from this type of mobocracy. We are not a democracy. We are a republic.
Big difference.
Right, which is why we have the electoral, to stop us from these fervor of moments where people get fomented and het up and cause damage. My heart in the very beginning was troubled because you knew somebody was going to get hurt.
Yeah.
How unfair this driver is now dealing with this, that they're not out to hurt people, and they're now dealing with this mentally, emotionally, physically, financially.
Absolutely.
So your bill.
Yes. So what I've looked at is when this occurred over in Iowa City, I made some requests. I made some legislative inquiries. Unfortunately, there were no citations given over in Iowa City. There were no arrests. That just irritates
the rest of us to no end.
It does. It irritates all of us. And my personal opinion is it sends the wrong message. And so I want a message to be very loud and clear to those who are listening, who are thinking about going out on the interstates or on the highways to block traffic. If my bill passes, and I hope it does, you will be facing felony charges. We are going to increase it from a simple misdemeanor to felony charges. Okay, so there's two aspects of it. One, we're increasing the penalty. And two, if you think you're in a county where you're going to be safe because the prosecutor isn't going to prosecute you, be aware, this bill has language that will be in it that will say if the county prosecutor refuses to prosecute, it will automatically go to the state attorney general for prosecution. People are really fed up with this, and not only are we endangering the lives of innocent people, right, but we're blocking right, interstate commerce. You know, there's a whole slew of issues with this, and I know you're going to be talking to Representative Kaufman, but to see educators encouraging this type right, of behavior, again, it's reprehensible. And so we're going to send a very loud and clear message that if you want to go out there and do that type of activity, you're going to be charged with a felony. You have a right to protest.
Yes.
No one argues your right to protest and have your voice heard. But there is a proper place and time to do it. And the interstate is not one of those places.
And so, okay, so call me devil's advocate. Here I
Yeah.
go, right? I don't like bills on the books. I like less government.
Yes.
And I don't like reactionary bills. So aren't there laws already? I mean, if I get a fine for going under 40 miles on the interstate, shouldn't these people get a fine for standing
Sure.
still on the interstate?
Well, you bring up a great point. The problem is under Chapter 321, there's 3 code sections that deal with pedestrians, okay? And the language isn't very good to begin with to address this. Basically, what they would be charged with is jaywalking, okay? That's what they would be charged with. And that simple misdemeanor does not fit the crime that's being committed. You are truly endangering. People can die by you going out there and protesting the way you are. And so I'm with you. There's a lot of places we can cut government and less government, less regulation, more personal freedom. But what I'm doing is protecting the freedom of individuals who want to go on the interstate system and the highway system without worry about coming around a corner in the middle of the night and hitting someone.
Right. I mean, the rest of us usually have to get a permit to go somewhere
bet.
and have a protest. So, and why do they always do this at night?
Yeah.
My husband says it's the darkness. The sin of darkness comes out.
It very well could be. I mean, it's a great question. Why do people do what they're doing? I think a lot of it comes down to emotion. Whether they're paid, whether they're whatever their motive is. But again, the point I'm trying to drive home is there's consequences.
There are.
And you can't expect to go out on the interstate and block traffic and not have repercussions.
Yeah, it's just maddening to me because somebody's going to get hurt. And
Yes.
it's not just the people who knowingly put themselves at risk. It's the innocent people who are driving to and from. And we have the story of the ambulance. And I know we've talked already on this show about the supposed fake news sites and fake news having impact on this election. But I'm telling you, I had someone come back to me on that post and say, this was a friend of mine. This is a real story. And this was a
Sure.
friend of my in-laws or something. And he's distraught. The ambulance driver is just distraught. Ambulance coming through and had to delay themselves and either go another route or wait. And the patient died.
Yeah.
A father of a 4-year-old is gone because these little fill in my blank
Well,
decided to have a protest and throw a tantrum in the middle of the interstate.
yeah. Outside of working in the state Senate, I'm an EMT as well. And we own an ambulance service. And I can tell you there are calls that truly seconds will mean all the difference in the world to whether or not that person is going to survive or not. When we talk about stroke victims, whether we talk about heart attack victims, if they've got to get a cath placed in their heart, seconds count. And, I know there's been a lot of question as to whether or not that story's authentic or not. But what I will tell you is whether it's real or not, this is real life. When people are out there blocking the interstate, that can mean all the difference in the world to your mom or to your dad or to your son or your daughter. And it's, again, just these individuals aren't thinking about all of the consequences. That could very well be their mom or dad. And they're just not thinking about those consequences.
And so I appreciate the fact that you are, as much as I hate reactive legislation, sometimes it's preemptive and future issues and setting people straight. So, and I did run it by Snopes, by the way, the left-leaning, left-protecting Snopes, and even they said it was not unlikely. So, with so many protests taking place. Now, so I want to get back to this. What we're seeing here are self-centered folks who care nothing about the process, nothing about the privilege we have in America, nothing about anybody else. This is what we're seeing, a generation of me-oriented, I matter most people who don't think about anybody else. And Jake, I think you've even had something at the Capitol on religious freedom, but if we went back to our Judeo principles and we actually taught that golden rule in school, treat others as you'd like to be treated, imagine the good we could do and stop some of this.
We would be in a much different place. The conversation would be much different. and I firmly believe that as a society, we are only as strong as what we are within the walls of our own home. And that, unfortunately, is the deterioration of the family, the deterioration of those, Christian principles being taught. Those are the basics of who we are as a nation. Yeah. And the further we get away from that, we're going to see the repercussions. We're going to see the consequences of that, and that's what we're seeing today.
The virtues you want to see in your candidates have to be the values you teach in your children. And what we're seeing today is the absence of those values. We were told we were going value neutral in our schools, and here you have it. You now have a deficit and a hole. They're on the interstate. Interstate is federal. Shouldn't there be federal charges?
It's interesting. I've gotten a lot of comments about that, and I've done some research. And while most people would think, stopping interstate commerce would be a federal law, a federal offense, the most I could find is under United States Code Chapter 18. It deals with you would actually have to be robbing someone. You would actually have to be blocking interstate commerce with the intent of committing robbery or extortion. And while you can make the arguments that's occurring, it looks like under that United States Code, it really isn't a federal offense to block an interstate. And so hopefully some of our federal people are listening to this as well, because it isn't just an Iowa issue. It's not just a California issue. We have two major interstate systems that come through Iowa, and we need to make sure those are clear for interstate commerce.
Absolutely. We're going to go to our break here shortly. I'm talking with State Senator Jake Chapman, and we appreciate you coming into studio with us. Bobby Kaufman's going to be joining us, State Representative Bobby Kaufman, and he has come up with a bill, and the timing is just perfect for this bill. Suck it up, Buttercup. If you don't like the way it turned out, tough bananas, and you're not going to use our hard-earned tax dollars to support your agendas anymore. I'm thrilled to see it. We'll be right back after these messages. Thanks for coming in and joining us.
Thank you so much.
Can stay with us in the next segment if you wish. You two out there need to stay tuned as well. Truth for Our Time, right back.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
So suck it up, buttercup. Move on, get over it. This ain't no school of hard knocks. Pull up your socks, you're having a fit. It's just a little bitty hold up.
Alrighty. Thank you, Chris. Suck it up, buttercup. And on the phone line with me is Representative Bobby Kaufman, who has set forth legislation with that title. Bobby, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tamara. Great to be here.
I appreciate this so much, and we can hardly talk about it without a little humor, which is good for our soul as well. Your bill is, one, overdue. We have allowed the schools to fund their agendas rather than educate for far too long, and yet your bill is perfect in timing. It is perfect with the backlash. The American people are tired of being run over by this type of foolishness, and you're on the Trump train with this momentum, I think.
Oh, absolutely, and it's been humbling to see the level of support that it's received. I've conducted dozens upon dozens of interviews across the country, received thousands of emails from all 50 states, and you're right, people are fed up. They don't want to see their kids. You know, you're supposed to teach giving both sides, let them think for themselves, not indoctrinating them with a particular level of thinking.
Hey, Chris, do we have that tape queued up from Fox and Friends?
Including that FAME school, up to that famous FAME school by Lincoln Center. They pushed all their kids out, told them to go protest in front of Trump Tower.
You mean teachers pushing social agendas in the classroom? That's nothing. I mean, this is an infection of our educational institutions that we're now seeing on our streets, which some are saying protesting, but we're also seeing riots.
So, Representative Kaufman, that's Fox and Friends, but I was just telling State Senator Jake Chapman, who's also in studio with us, we talked about his bill on the protesters last segment. We were just talking about this. I know, I'm going to see if I can get a copy. One of the mothers of a child in the Des Moines School District said they got an email sent home that they were going to allow kids to go out and protest. Now, I'll tell you what, we were all in school. We wouldn't have cared what we were protesting. You mean we get to go outside in November on a beautiful, warm, sunny day? We're heading outside. What is it we're mad about? These schools are out of hand when they are promoting and pushing our kids out the door to speak against the process many died to protect.
Oh, that's exactly right. And, you know, it also turns into danger. And I want to applaud Senator Chapman's efforts because I had the same thoughts. Because, you know, you had these University of Iowa protesters, and some were high school kids, but some were also university kids who were organized by their professor, who were not only protesting and walking out on their exams. And think about if you're the kid who studied and you're the kid who organized their work schedule around this, and all of a sudden your exam's canceled because someone decided to be a brat. It's totally unacceptable. And then to walk up and block off Interstate 80 and put my constituents in danger, that's where I draw the line. That's totally unacceptable.
So did you see the video that the president of ISU put out the day before the election?
I saw that, and I've seen some of the things that he's put out since then, and that is going to be another thing that we're going to look into, because for goodness sakes, you're supposed to be leading an institution, not influencing it with political beliefs.
And there's another letter from the president of Drake, and I'll send that one to you as well. I've got to go back and find that one. She sent it, I believe, to faculty. I got it from a faculty member, but these folks know exactly what they're doing, no matter how covert or coded they are in their language. They know exactly what they're doing when they send messages to the kids on campus. You will not speak out about Trump. You will not be excited about Trump. And here's my really irritate. You just talked about people getting hurt. The one in Polk County with these the high school kids, they are setting these kids up to be fearful, to create prejudice, and to create division between us as a people.
Oh, absolutely. And they're not only setting them up to be fearful and prejudiced, but they're also setting them up to fail in life. Because, you know, when you're an adult and your car breaks down, your kids get sick, or you get a bad work review, you don't get to go out and protest. You don't get to cry it out. You don't get to go to a cry room and color. You have to suck it up. And that's why I named the bill the way that I named it. People say, well, that's not sensitive. And I say, I understand that, but life isn't sensitive.
Are you really seriously getting pushed back on the name of the bill?
Oh, I'm being told that I've been told that I'm a racist. I've been told that I'm misogynist, that I'm sexist, that I'm told that I need to go to jail because I've actually received 2 emails telling me that I'm going to be in jail soon because I'm putting forth a hate crime by putting this bill out.
Isn't that incredible?
It just blows my mind. They can call us everything they want. They can shut us out of conversations. They can impede our travel, and we're supposed to sit silently by, or we're the bad guys. So tell us. Go ahead.
No, it's the ultimate double standard that the tolerance crowd is intolerant.
And this is why we love what you're doing. We love the name of it. We love the timing of it. So how is it going to work?
Well, I think this is going to be a legitimate bill next session. I'm one that doesn't like to just talk. I'd like to see something done. So, I don't pretend to know what exactly it's going to take to give law enforcement more tools on the interstate. So I'm looking forward to working with Senator Chapman, and I've reached out to law enforcement on my end and said, hey, what is it that you guys need? And a lot of things I'm hearing is increased penalties. Because a lot of these kids I've seen on the news clips say that they're not bothered by a simple misdemeanor. And I've also got requests out to the universities and the schools. And, we get told that we don't have enough money and we need to get more money to us, or we're going to raise your tuition. Well, we better hope that we better not find out all these extra political dollars that we're seeing the reports come out of, because if those are happening, which I believe they are, then you have too much money. And I'd like to see money slashed from your budget and put towards something else.
So how will you will they be honest with you and say we've spent this much on crying rooms and Play-Doh and compassion dogs?
Well, I believe I'm in a unique position as oversight chair, which is the position I've requested. A lot of people want to try to move up with this new session. I've requested to remain on as oversight chair because, just like we were able to expose the horrific things that happened at the LGBTQ bully conference last year, I think my role as oversight chair is going to give me a little bit of influence to be able to make sure that I get the right answer. So I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to find out the answers. I'm going to work with law enforcement, figure out exactly what the best wording of the bill should be, and I absolutely plan come January on having a Suck It Up Buttercup bill to introduce to the Iowa legislature.
I can't hear you say it without cracking up, which I just really think is good for all of us. We need a little laugh after the last election cycle we've been through for 2 years. So we support you. We're thrilled about it. You're obviously getting great pushback on it, but you also are getting some negative. So for those out there, our listening audience, what do they need to do here in Iowa? But we also have folks listening across the nation and across the globe. You say other folks are considering this as well. How can we help as average Joe, mom and dad? What do we do to help make sure it happens?
Well, there's a lot you can do. First and foremost, contact people that are taking this cause up, such as myself or Senator Chapman. You can Google us, Iowa Legislature, look up our names, send us an email. But also don't stop there. Contact your own representatives. And we're turning this into a national movement, because I don't want to just see this happen in Iowa. I want to see this happen across the country. So my campaign has actually purchased up the domain name www.suckitupbuttercup.mobi, M-O-B-I, where you can sign up to follow us. You can follow the news stories. We can give you legislative updates. And I think this can turn into a national movement where you, the people, just like you showed last Tuesday, you can take back your country. You, the people, can take back your campuses.
Suckitupbuttercup.mobi, M-O-B as in Bob, I.
Yep.
All right. Well, I thank you for what you're doing. And I played the devil's advocate with Jake. My only concern is I don't want to squelch free speech in any way. And if the day would come when we have such a regime like when we just escaped, without him trying to take our guns or whatever, what if we do need to actually come out and protest in numbers on the interstates or in our classrooms? What then?
Well, that's a fantastic question. I'm a firm supporter of the First Amendment, but I think the constitutional checks have showed that your constitutional rights don't get to impede on the constitutional rights of others, and that's where I think these particular protesters are taking it too far. Folks like you and I were protesting. We'd be trying to be effective, not disrupt other people's lives, not put people in danger, and not make sure that people are not in. I mean, look at that Interstate 80 protest. People could have actually died. And I think that's the difference between what we would do and what some of these folks are doing right now. So I'm just trying to establish that, hey, you can protest all you want, you can make a difference all you want, but you do not get to trample on other people's constitutional rights to do it.
We have 30 seconds left, both of you. We have Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican governorship. We're going to see change. We're going to see a sweep of great legislation.
Count on it.
Absolutely that. Absolutely.
All right. Defunding Planned Parenthood?
Absolutely.
I keep saying hashtag no excuses. So I'll be thrilled to see it. Representative Bobby Kaufman has been my guest with Suck It Up Buttercup, and State Senator Jake Chapman has been my guest with his bill on the highways, protecting us on the interstates from people who would be so foolish to step out in front of us. Thank you for joining me. We'll be right back after these messages to wrap it up. Stay tuned.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common, everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And thank you for staying tuned. I am Tamara Scott. You are listening to Truth for Our Time. We had a fun time in studio today. I hope you enjoyed your time with us. I appreciate Josh Klein coming in from the, he called in from the Jerusalem Breitbart Post, talking about Steve Bannon as the chief White House chief strategist, and I just think it's a marvelous choice. I think it's out of the box, not something that the rest of us were looking at. We had State Senator Jake Chapman coming in and talking about his bill in response, and I admit I am not a reactive legislation person. I am a proactive legislatively minded person. But I totally understand this bill, and my gosh, if it stops one more person from getting hurt, harmed, or facing danger, I'm all for it. You know, you and I will protest, or if we would protest, we'd be smart enough not to walk out in front of a car. We teach our kids to watch before they cross the street, and we tell them to stay away from busy streets. So it slays me that these people will go out and do this, especially when we read and we hear from that Fox and Friend post and others, 70% of those kids and adults, whoever they are out there, the ones who are dumb enough to walk out on an interstate, were not smart enough to vote. My goodness. My goodness. And I want to come back to that. And Bobby Kaufman, Representative Bobby Kaufman, with his bill on Suck It Up Buttercup, it is overdue because we have allowed the schools to indoctrinate our kids for far too long. They revised history. They promoted their agendas at the door. So it's overdue in that regard, and yet it's right on time. It is perfect timing with the Trump train of getting America back on track. It is the Trump train getting America back on track, putting us back on the rails financially, back on the rails educationally, back on the rails politically, spiritually. It is time, and I think there is a movement coming forward. And as the T-shirt said when Trump was running, get on board or get run over. And we've already seen several folks get run over. So perfect timing for these guys, and I'm thrilled to see it. But I want to come back to something, and I didn't know I was going to say this. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to go to. And I want to touch on Thanksgiving because we've got Thanksgiving coming up this next week. But I'm going to talk about this. These kids aren't smart enough to know how to protest. They could have had their say. If they're really upset about a Trump, and I don't believe they are, I think many of them are hired, and I'm curious, I should have asked the guys about this. If we find out that there is Soros money behind this, inciting riots and causing damage, can't we then fine him, charge George Soros or whoever it is that may be behind this? If we find out there is truly money behind this, can't we then find a way to punish those folks for inciting it and causing it? But for those kids or adults, whoever they are, who apparently aren't bright enough to know you don't walk out in front of traffic that's going 75, 65 miles an hour without expecting somebody to get hurt. I know that they think they're invincible. Let me tell you this story. I take the steps when I come up to the studio here every so often just to kind of prove myself that I'm not as rotten and out of shape as I really, truly am. But I was doing the steps today and realizing I would not be able to make it up the Masada at this point. A couple years ago, I was in Israel, and I wanted to do the snake trail up the Masada. We were on a time because the folks were going to take the car up, and so I knew I either had to get up there at least, if I couldn't get up there when they met their car after they'd waited, I needed to get up there before their car was heading back down for certain. And so I start up this hill, and it's like a 2-mile trek, and it's an incline up to a butte where one of Herod's older palaces were, and there's a great story on the history of the Israel people. The Romans were coming after them. They had catapults. They were throwing boulders into the side of the mountain, into the side of their safe haven there, and they knew it was a matter of time. And when they realized that it was inevitable that they would be under the Roman reign, they took names on pottery. They drew names. They killed their wives and children. And then they killed each other, and one person had to kill themselves. My thought was, my goodness, why don't you just serve somebody else? They did not want their children to risk becoming deceived by a false god, stop serving the one true God, and lose out on eternity. It's an amazing, amazing story. It used to be how America felt, too. We wanted our kids to know the truth. We didn't want them to be deceived by the false gods of other cultures. And they were not going to allow their families to be taken over by that. That's its own story, right? But I brought it up because the steps. As I'm huffing and puffing on my little steps and the boulders and climbing the rocks and getting up there to the castle, the old Herod's older palace, with everybody else, I'm huffing and puffing, and I'm praying that God will help me make it, because I think I'm going to die on the side of this mountain. And I'm like, I think there's going to be a bench to sit and wait somewhere, or surely there's a place where you can get off and rest. And then I realized, no, this isn't America, Tamara. There's no bailouts. In America, you always have a port in the storm. They always give you a safety net. No, not in other countries. There was nothing. You keep moving. You either go back down or you go back up or continue up. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to make it. So I'm huffing and puffing, and I get up there, and I'm like, Lord, help me make it up to the top. And then I feel like the Lord said to me, I provided you a way. I gave you a way. You decided to do it the hard way. What a lesson for all of us. And I bring that back to these protesters, and I know it was kind of a hard way around it, but these protesters could have voted on Tuesday. And as Fox and Friends reported, 70% of them, at least in the Oregon protests, that 70% of those arrested didn't vote. They had the numbers, like 35 of them were maybe not registered, and 39 were registered and didn't vote. You can check out the numbers on that clip. It's on Truth for Our Time Facebook page. They could have done this peaceably. They didn't. Good word for the rest of us. We can handle things peaceably. There's two ways you can take that story. They're being foolish about this, and understand they're not angry with Trump. They're fighting the process. They're protesting you and I who did participate in the process and what we did in the process. They're protesting the men and women who died to give us the privilege of this process. And that's what's really irritating to me. So as we come into this next week, it's Thanksgiving, and I hope you'll join us next week. We're talking about the Electoral College, the Secretary of State, Deputy Secretary of State's joining us. We're talking to some of our electors as well. I hope you'll join us. But it's Thanksgiving. I hope you take time out for family. And the mainstream media is telling you it's not politically correct to talk about politics at Thanksgiving. Oh, really? They never said that when we don't have Republicans win. It is every bit your job. One, to talk about your faith and the God of providence that saw our country through. And this book, Miracles, by Susie Federer and Bill Federer, is a great list of stories of the way God saw our nation through. Our Mayflower Compact is something you need to read to your kids. Take it out and read it. The first document ever signed on this land by those coming across to set up colonies here gives honor to God. And we need to, too, and I hope you will this Thanksgiving. I need to say thanks to Chris. You did a great job today. Chris is my producer in the box. And so thank you for listening. As always, I hope you've been encouraged. I hope you'll take this information and use it. Be encouraged and never be complacent.